thank you very much for being here. And I would like also to thank the ICD for giving me the opportunity to raise the voice regarding cultural heritage and diversity, especially during these days of the danger on losing our values and losing our meaning of survival with the terrorist attacks and the fundamentals trying to play with our identity by destroying the very core values that we all share as humans. So, targeting cultural diversity in the Arab world. To speak about it, it's very important first to talk about people and how they really create their identities, and then look at the cultural heritage level, and then the diversity level, and then see how this is reflected in the Arab world, and then see why it's targeted, and then end up with a conclusion and some remarks and observations. So to start, it's very important to talk about people, because people are not only individuals. People's beliefs, values, views, and abilities are shaped and sustained within social groups, families, and communities. People's intrinsic paradigm allows the creation and the ability to influence sport trends and behavior that transcends into what we have today as cultural heritage. So targeting cultural heritage and its diversity is an attack on people's set of values, beliefs, views, and most important, their abilities to live together. What does that mean? It means, in a way or another, that by targeting or by destroying the tombs in Palmyra, they are not only and simply destroying these tombs, they are also destroying the diversity in Palmyra, because who knows that in that area there were different religions living together, people from different beliefs. They used to bury their bodies inside this land, and usually you have a separated tombs, but in Palmyra they were like really using it all together. So by destroying this thing, they are really destroying this diversity, this tolerance that was existing, and it was an evidence of how the Syrians were living, as example, at that specific time. And by doing that, they're really cutting our possibility to live in a diverse world today. The same thing has to do with destroying some columns in a theater where usually people used to celebrate life. So by doing that, it's not only that they want to destroy the cultural heritage, they are really destroying the very important factor that people live to celebrate life, and they are trying to do it in the most positive way. So terrorists are really attacking cultural heritage as symbolic to the values that it represents. So what is cultural heritage? Is it, I mean, I will here throw some stimulating questions rather than I'm going to try to define cultural heritage. So bear with me. So what is it? Is it tangible and cultural, or natural and intangible? What values does the heritage provide us with? And to which problems and solutions can it contribute? To name some, globalizations, wars, and financial crisis. And how can it be relevant to the process of peace building? It's very obvious that when we talk about cultural heritage, we are not talking about stones and buildings. It's rather about identities and belongings. It is an expression or representation of cultural identity of a society in a particular time, as per Coppold. And Throsby considered that it's contributing to community's cultural capital, which is in the case of immovable heritage, is the capital value that can attribute it to a place and embodies the community valuation of the asset in terms of its social, historical, or cultural dimension. I'm trying to give the best definition for cultural heritage. I find it is coming from the Faro Convention in 2010, where they say cultural heritage is defined as a group of resources, and I would highlight the word resources. So it's really a group of resources inherited from the past that people identify independently of ownership as a reflection and expression of their constantly evolving values, beliefs, knowledge, and traditions. So by that, saying that cultural heritage is a group of resources, it gives us the possibility that these resources has a power. So what is the power of cultural heritage? What does cultural heritage provide us with? Identities, a web of meanings, cultural significance, linked to a place, sense of belonging, options, diversity, respect, understanding, equality, as well as education, job, investments, economic development. It can lead to assimilation, absorption, and integration. But we need to be careful, because sometimes if fundamentals are using it, it can also take us to resistance, isolation, and somehow independence in the negative way. So is it a problem or a solution? By throwing these possibilities of cultural heritage, it's very important to talk about the second level, which is the diversity of cultural heritage. And now let's talk about it. So what is it really, cultural diversity? Is it a common heritage of humanity, as we say all the time? Is it the uniqueness and plurality of the identities of the groups and societies making up humankind? Is it source of exchange, innovation, and creativity? Is it really a necessity in our world? Well, the UNESCO 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions, it is I think, the latest convention in the cultural field at the UNESCO, and I think the international community start to see the importance of cultural diversity as the possibility for us to live together. Tried also to define cultural diversity as it refers to the diverse ways in which the cultures of groups and societies find expressions, and these expressions are passed on within and among groups and societies. It is manifested not only through many ways in which the cultural heritage of humanity is expressed, augmented, and transmitted through the variety of cultural expressions, but also through diverse models of artistic creations, production, dissemination, distribution, and enjoyment, whatever the means and technologies used. The same convention defines what's called interculturality as interculturality refers to the existence and equitable interaction of diverse cultures and the possibility of generating shared cultural expressions through dialogue and mutual respect. Cultural diversity reflects then a range of societies with different religious traditions or cultural backgrounds living together or interacting with each other. And by that, I cannot not remember the Arab world, because at the end of the day, it is a very diverse. It's not really one country, it's not really one culture. We have really a big extended homeland of the Arabs. To give a hint about it, it's stretching around 5.25 million square miles between the Arab Gulf on the east and the Atlantic on the west. It's constituted of 22 states, inhabited by 4 million people, mostly young generation, and it is a passage between Asia, Africa, and it's a corridor to Europe somehow. The Arab world is really has a contrasting environmental settings and climates. Rivers, big rivers, Euphrates, Nile, and many others, the oceans from the east and the west, the Indian in the east and the Atlantic in the west, the mountains and the deserts, the seas, the Mediterranean culture all together. It's there inside the Arab world. And this contrasting environmental settings led to constructing pattern of living. So we're still in the Arab world having the Bedouin, the rural, and the urban lifestyles living together, sometimes having issues and sometimes having more of a harmonized life. It is also a mosaic of religions and ethnicities. And if we look at all that and try to identify what is the identity of an Arab, what does the Arab society look like? Is it segmentary, patriarchal, tribal, religious, dependent, underdeveloped? People may argue as well that Arabs are really consumers, unable to produce on both the intellectual and physical level. How did we reach this point in the Arab world? And what happened to us if this is the case? We need to look at the identity to understand how things are the way they are at the end. And to understand the Arabs, we need to look a little bit on the identity, as identity refers to the sharing of essential elements that define the character and orientation of people and affirm their common needs, interests, goals, and it recognizes the importance of differences. Shared identities help potential building blocks of positive future of the Arab world, but then how to have a shared identity without compromising the vast range of diversity in the Arab world? The Arab world has many cultural emphases. If we want to look at the Arab society, we have the common and shared culture. People may argue it's the Arabic language, it's the Islam, because the majority of population is Muslim in the Arab world. But we have also the subcultures, pattern of livings, I said, Bedouins, rural, and the urban lifestyles. We have social formation, by all means. We have religious and sectarian affiliations. We have Muslim Sunni, Muslim Shiite, Alawite, Durzite, Ismailite, Yazidite. We have Christian Catholic, Christian Orthodox, Maronite. We have the Protestant and many, many others. Of course, also we have a small percentage of Jews inside. And we have also the ethnicities. And that's like, if we think of the Arabs because they speak Arabic, but what about the Kurds, the Berbers? What about the Assyrians? What about the others who are also living in, and they make, actually, if we look at the history, they might be even before the Arabs in this land, and we cannot ignore these subcultures. But also, we have countercultures. Alienated intellectuals, a lot of them has been living abroad because simply they couldn't be welcome in their homelands. We have uprooted communities with all the problems and things that come usually with such situation. And we have radical movements, and we are really now living in this radical movements era. We have also a very diverse cultural heritage in the Arab world. So this diversity in the modern era is definitely a reflection of what we have in cultural heritage. As the Arab world is home of more than 70 sites already inscribed at the UNESCO World Heritage List, we have enormous intangible cultural heritage and more than 11 years of civilizations. Sumerians, Akkadians, Pharaohs, Assyrians, Babylonians, Amorites, Hittites, Arameans, Phoenicians, Greek, Romans, Turk, Mongols, Arabs, and then French and English mandates, just to give you how many layers is happening inside the Arab world. And we have, most important, that this doesn't happen in isolation. There was an exchange and expansion from the east to the west and vice versa. Giving example of the Phoenician civilization and their sailing to the west, the Greeks coming from the west to us, the Romans, the Croatians, and then the Arabs decided to go to the west again during the Andalusia period, and we have all the Silk Road culture that is, the Arab world was playing a very, very vital role in it. So if this is how the Arab world is done, and if this is how diverse it is, then why I think that at this time, the most important thing happening now is really targeting its cultural diversity. It's because when we talk about this violation, this targeting, we need to talk about conflicts. And conflicts happen in relationship between individuals or groups or even countries because people have different goals and values. It is what results, real or imagined, of incompatible interests, goals, beliefs, or activities. And no wonder then that the destruction of cultural heritage is the weapon to attack identities of others through the destruction of the tangible symbol, between brackets, cultural heritage, of their identities. And when this applies to the Arab world, then targeting our diverse cultural heritage is targeting our diverse realities and the meaning of our present while cutting the road to our future. Such destruction inflicts physiological harm as it has direct implication on the collective memories of a nation or a group and have a very long-lasting damage in the process of building identities. And I'm just here having the diverse pictures of diverse cultures in the Arab world. You have the Gulf, Iraq, Morocco, the Gulf again, Egypt, and that's a festival in Syria. And they tried also with the pictures to show all types of culture, not only cultural heritage in the past, but also the living culture and the present culture, as I think we can't look at cultural heritage in isolation of present and future because it is what people produce and create. To conclude, I think targeting cultural diversity in the Arab world will lead to damaging an important pillar of regions' overall development and well-being due to cultural heritage importance in education enhancement and employment robust, threatening any peace possibilities in the region, as cultural diversity is a precondition for social inclusion, cohesion, reconciliation, and participation, limiting the Arabs as consumers away from creativity and innovation, blurring the sense of belonging and stopping any positive process towards building identities, disconnecting Arabs from their inherited open and tolerated values to create a culturally poor societies unable to respect and understand the religions and cultures of others, narrowing the range of options open to everyone and stopping any attempts to achieve not only an economic growth, but also a more satisfactory intellectual, emotional, moral, and spiritual existence. And these are the realities of our cultural heritage. As I said, nobody is respected, not the religion, not the women. It's a holy tomb in Iraq, and yeah, that's an important palace in Syria, in Aleppo. At the end, the only way, I think, for us humans to survive is accepting and respecting cultural diversity, as it paves the way to dialogue among civilizations and cultures, respect and mutual understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yara, for this wonderful presentation. We all hope that your lovely country, of course, as soon as possible, will have a better time. Now, I would like to invite you for your questions and comments, please. Actually, I will take now these two questions, and I would like to ask you, meanwhile, after that, to answer to them, and yeah, after that, we'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and well-summarized presentation. I think little is left to say after your conclusions. However, I would like to ask you, as someone who's originally from Syria and who knows the situation from within, how do you think, well, nowadays you have a raging war going on, which is terrible, and however, do you think that given the previous situation, there is some room for mutual understanding in the future? Thank you.
I will take it. Please.
Thank you.
I did the question.
Please.
Okay.
Yes, we'll take 2 questions now.
Thank you again. My name is Anna. I'm from Ukraine. Once again, thank you for the presentation and once more emphasizing of the diversity. My question is, what do you see like practical tools of implementation? It's like a good word. Yes, we have to respect and understand each other and try to make this dialogue. By which means we have to do that? Or, I mean, inside your Arabic world, as you know, that's religious topic is very intense and strong, and we do need to have practical tools to implement. How do you see them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the very interesting 2 questions. Regarding the first question about can we Syrians, when they arrive to peace, is it that how can we do that? Well, I think in the Syrian crisis, it's not only Syrian crisis, and I was always against the concept of civil war because for me it's more or less a proxy war in Syria, and we Syrians are not fighting each other. We people, we are not doing that. Actually, I have been twice saved by my neighbors who are from a different religious groups. When fundamentals from their own beliefs tried to attack the minorities in Syria, they were the one who saved us twice in Syria. And if that reflects anything, it reflects that we do not have a problem of living together inside the country. And the minute every other foreign forces are withdraw from Syria, I think if the thing happens to the Syrian dialogue, I think there is a lot of room, a big room for reconciliation, for forgiveness, and because simply Syrians were used to live 10,000 years ago, and we have examples from one city where we have the oldest painted synagogue in the world, together with that transfers all its traditions in the art scene to the Christianity to have the first painted church in the way usually a church is painted, and together with other religions, all that was living and thriving inside Dora Oropos. The same thing happened in Palmyra, and the same thing happened in other things. So we Syrians, when you look at the Syrian diversity of cultures, of religions, of ethnicities, of today, it is really a good reflection of what we had in the past, and we are aware of the values. What we have now in Syria is really a fragile group that has been targeted by different fundamental agendas with some money, with some power from here and there, and they are too young to identify their identity and to be aware of the values. And that's why we have this, we cannot say that it's only foreigners fighting in Syria. We also have our sons fighting as well inside Syria, but that's simply because there is a lack, and now maybe I will jump to your question, there is a lack of understanding of the values that we have inherited from our cultural heritage. And I think with a lot of tolerance and with a lot of forgiveness, we Syrians can still find a way to live together if the crisis stops today. Why I was talking about these values and linking it to the second question, because I think we need a lot of peace education. We need to change the education programs in Syria in a way that it's not only Khalid ibn al-Walid, who is the great Islamic leader, is important and a great feature that takes a lot of our history books. We need also to talk about Theodorus the Damascene. We need to talk about other great personalities that represents the Syrian history and represents its contribution to humanity. And we need to see and construct these values and reflect it in our education. At the same time, civil society has to play a very important role in terms of how to bring people together, how to create this platform of dialogue. And I think, yes, we can reach diversity by first checking how different we are, because before in Syria we were always living in harmony, but we were living in a harmony in a very romantic way, like, yeah, we're different, but we don't speak about it. If somebody asks you about your religion, it's a very insulting question. Till now, when somebody asks me, I feel like shocked, because it is not okay the way in Syria we deal. But I think it's important at this moment, and maybe it's important that we had this conflict, because now we can really know that, okay, we have our problems, we are different, and this is how it is, and this is the reality, and we have to deal with that. So first we need to recognize our differences, and then we need to see what these differences bring us, and instead of take us apart from each other, creating conflicts, how can this enrich us, and how can this bring us strong together? We have a present, unfortunately, which put us in a destiny that we need to live apart from each other, but I don't think Syrians want that for their future generation. I don't want this for my daughter and son, and I don't want it for my granddaughters and sons. I want Syrians to go back to live together, and I think it's only through education, through the civil society engagement, and through a very good policies where you can really reflect this diversity and emphasize it in a way in all aspects of life, that we can maybe practice the diversity on a daily basis and reach peace and reconciliation.
Thank you very much. Yara, one more time, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, for answering to the questions. And please join me in showing our sincere gratitude to Yara Moualla. I'm sorry for that. Yes. Thank you very much, Yara.